The following program on BSSE Television is produced by KBIA-FM, Mid-Missouri Public Radio, and the Reynolds Journalism Institute at the Missouri School of Journalism.
Welcome to the television edition of Radio Friends, where we feature guests from all over central Missouri. Today, we're going to take you on a tour of the Truman Library in Independence, Missouri, and share more computer talk. All that and a lot more, so let's get started right now. We were talking before we came on the air here about Marketplace, and now Marketplace is available to almost everybody, right?
Yes. Yeah. The healthcare.gov open enrollment period began on November 1st, and it will run through January 15th. And on the healthcare.gov marketplace, basically anybody who doesn't have insurance through their work can apply through the healthcare.gov marketplace and find out if they are eligible to purchase a plan there or if they are eligible for MoHealthNet instead.
Now, you were saying that the benefits have been increased this year, correct?
Yes.
And they're continuing for 3 years, for the next 3 years?
Yes. So during the pandemic, there were a lot of extra financial help, tax credits and things like that available for folks. And those have been extended or increased through 2025. And so what we are seeing now is that folks who purchase a plan through the healthcare.gov marketplace, about 90% of people are eligible for some sort of financial help, people who are purchasing their plans through the healthcare.gov marketplace.
So even if you think you may not qualify, or if you didn't qualify last year, there's a very good chance that you could qualify for assistance this year.
Yes.
Check it out and take advantage of it.
Yes,
Check
absolutely.
It out. So what do? They go to...
So in Missouri, you don't have to go it alone in Missouri. Some people, you can definitely sign up for the healthcare.gov marketplace on your own, just at healthcare.gov. Be sure you get the .gov, not .com. But in Missouri, you can actually go to covermissouri.org, or you can call our 1-800 number on the screen here and get connected to free local help. So, for example, I am a healthcare.gov marketplace navigator, which means I have the training and, we all get background checks, things like that. And so you can actually call Cover Missouri and get connected to somebody who can walk you through the entire process, explain all your options.
Okay, and that is 800-466-3213. And if you think that perhaps you don't qualify for the marketplace, check it out, because there's a very good chance that you will qualify.
Yes. And we also are spreading the word that this year, we're finding that a lot of people also don't know that Medicaid in Missouri has been expanded. There's still thankfully now, a myth going around that you might not make enough money to qualify for health insurance, and that used to be the case. But now that Medicaid has been expanded, those limits are right up next to each other. Okay. So you can either qualify for MoHealthNet or healthcare.gov plans, and the healthcare.gov marketplace will tell you what you qualify for, or again, come to Cover Missouri and we'll get you connected to local help.
Thank you so much for coming by.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now we're going to talk about one of my favorite musicals, Annie, which is running down at Capital City Production, and we have Daddy Warbuck with us and Annie. Good to have both of you. Daddy Warbuck is Ben Miller, and Annie is Bryn Myers. It's a pleasure to have you. How old are you, Bryn?
I am 10 years old.
And playing Annie, is this something you've thought about for a long time?
It has. It's been my dream role since I was a little kid.
Since you were a little kid? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now that you're a big kid, right? Okay. And Daddy Warbuck, what's it like to be in this show?
Well, I mean, the easy part is I've got the haircut down, and so I don't have to do a whole lot there. No, seriously though, it's really great to work with a lot of very talented young people and just their energy and excitement, and it's just been kind of a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, Annie. If I think most people are familiar with the story of Little Orphan Annie. It's the music is wonderful. The story is beautiful and has a good ending. And we know the sun will always come out tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Is that one of your favorite songs in there?
Yeah.
Could you, we don't have any music or anything, but could you do just maybe 10, 15 seconds of The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow? Go ahead.
The sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun.
Oh, that's good. I could have you do the whole song if you want to. But we don't have time for it. Why should people come to this show? Either one of you.
I think they should come to the show because it's such a great story, and the music's wonderful, and it's just fun.
Yeah. How do you go to school and have time to rehearse for Annie?
Well, I do an online school, so it helps with the theater. So it's self-paced, so you can do a couple lessons a day, and they're around 2 or a couple minutes. So
Yeah. So what do you want to do? Now, I know you're not a little kid anymore because you've been dreaming about being Annie since you were a little kid. But what do you want to do when you become older? I don't want to say grow up. What do you want to do when you become older?
So one of my dream roles from when I become older is to be Anne Boleyn on Six, the musical.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well, I wish you the very best of luck. I wish you the very best of luck. Tell me, the show is running when, Daddy Warbach?
We open in just under 3 weeks, and we run December 1st, December 8th, and December 15th. It's a 3-week show run, 4 shows each weekend for a total of 12 shows, and we've already sold out a couple of shows, so I would start getting on tickets now, or else I think folks could miss this one. And as you've heard, it's going to be a great one.
Now, is there dinner with the shows too?
There is. For all 12 shows, there is dinner included in the price. If you go to our website at ccpjc.org, you can see the menu for the show and see the whole cast list.
Okay, so it's Annie, and you're running at Capital City Productions. It sounds absolutely wonderful. This is something that you care a lot about. This is something that you deal with on a regular basis, and that is suicide.
Yes, Paul.
How big of a problem is suicide in our state and in our country?
Paul, and I'm glad you asked that question. Suicide here in Missouri is the third leading cause of death for folks ages 10 to 24. It's the third leading cause of death for people ages 25 to 34. The fourth leading cause of death for ages 35 to 44. And something of importance, and something that we're focusing on within the prevention department, Paul, is firearm deaths by suicide.
Firearm deaths.
Firearm deaths. 63% of all suicides were by firearm. And it's important to note that nationally, men died by suicide 3.9 times more often than females, whereas females were more likely to attempt. Okay, so we're seeing that nationally, yes, you may have heard that there was a mass shooting in St. Louis yesterday at one of the schools, and that's tragic and it's devastating, and it also brings light that, yes, there's a needed focus on that. There's also a needed focus on suicides because by far, if the statistics are correct, and these are 2020 statistics from the CDC, that suicides outnumber homicides to some degree.
When you said,
but there's no focus on it.
Yeah, when you were talking about the fact that statistics show that suicide among young people is the third highest cause of death. You're right up there with cancer and heart disease, suicide. Then you bring in the statistics of the guns. And over 60% of suicides are committed with firearms. Now, what does that say? What does that say about us? What does that say about our society and the fact that firearms are so readily available and not protected?
I think it says, Paul, and we try to stay apolitical.
I understand that. I understand that. And we're not trying to say that you can't have guns.
Right.
But there is a sensible way to own guns.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I have to say yes, sir. Yes, Paul, there is, and we focus on that. When we do our trainings, the trainings that we'll discuss later on, we talk about gun locks. We talk about gun safes. We talk about safe ways to store your firearm away from the ammunition. We talk about recognizing signs and symptoms because we know that there's a lot of hunters, there's a lot of folks in Missouri that have firearms, and their children have access because they go hunt. My colleague, him and his daughter, they go hunting together, but he has a safe. And so when they're done hunting, he takes all the firearms and puts them in the safe.
And locks them up.
There are ways, yes, sir, yes, Paul, there are ways to keep firearms away from those that are experiencing some emotional distress.
I understand what you're saying exactly. And just personally, it makes me angry when I hear people say they're trying to take your guns away. Nobody's trying to take your guns away. Just keep the guns locked up in a safe way. I grew up. My father was a hunter, and we had firearms in the house.
Yes, sir.
But he kept them away and locked up.
Right.
We didn't have a safe. He kept them locked up in the closet. And I remember being told over and over and over again, I was not to touch that gun. And there was never ammunition close to the gun.
Right. And we stress, whenever we have these trainings, Paul, I tell everybody up front, have as many weapons as you want in your home. Our concern is if I am your friend and I come over and I'm having some psychological distress, can you make sure that those firearms stay away from me while I am recovering from that distress? That's our focus when we talk about suicide-safer communities.
So what do you say to people now, somebody listening to us or watching us,
yes, sir,
that is despondent, and they have been contemplating suicide, and there are people who sit and think about it?
Yeah.
What do you say? There's help.
Yes.
There is help.
Yes.
People care about you. If you're feeling down, you feel that you are by yourself, you're alone. You're not alone. There are people that care about you, whether you realize it or not. There are people that care about you and love you.
Yes, sir. Yes.
You don't want to take your own life.
Let me stress this right off, Paul. 988. That's not our, but nationally, that's the new number. Okay, 988 is the new number to call. At first, it was some long number that you had to call, or you just like 911. 988, and that will put you in touch. And that's 24/7, 365. That will put you in touch with mental health providers. Just a number, 988.
So if you're despondent and you have been contemplating, suicide, call 988.
Absolutely, 988. 988. And if hopefully you have some type of support network. If I have thoughts of suicide, I know who I can turn to. I have my wife. I have my children. I have a therapist. I have folks that I can turn to. Mental health resources. There's a scarcity.
But there are some people who feel alone.
Oh, yes.
You feel alone. You feel like you are by yourself. There's nobody you can turn to. But that's not true. There are people that really care about you and want to help you. You may not know them. Maybe you don't know who they are. But there are people out there, trust me, that do care about you and do want to help you. And the first place to start would be that number, 988.
Yes, sir, 988. You can call that number right now, any time of day or night. Trained counselors, trained folks on the other end of the phone that can talk to you, that can listen to you, and get the right resources in place for you for further on down the line. It's not just a temporary, you know what I'm saying, Paul? Folks, they have the thoughts and then they disappear. No, it may be long-term intervention that we need.
You can also go to compasshealthnetwork.org, then click on the location tab to find one that's nearest you. I had no idea that so many things now are being made that can be connected to the internet.
That's correct.
Yeah. So, we think of our phone, the smartphone, the smart TV, the smart thermostat. Yeah, I came into that age about 2 years ago, which is really kind of neat. But some of these other things you were telling me today, what are some of the other appliances?
Well, aside from the useful ones that you mentioned, the thermostat, the doorbell camera, we have everyday appliances that are starting to get Wi-Fi connectivity. That could be your dishwasher, the washing machine, the coffee maker, the stove, the oven. Even the new Roombas have Wi-Fi built in.
Even the new what?
Roombas, that little robotic floor sweeper.
Why? Now, why does a washing machine have to be connected to the internet?
Well, presumably to tell you when it's done, or maybe you want to start the wash while you're out so it's nice and fresh when you get back home. I mean, I couldn't answer that. That's not a thing I'm interested in.
Okay, and you also mentioned that now some of the children's toys
That's right.
are smart toys.
And that's really the most concerning to me, because there's just really no regulation in how these things work. So children's toys that are cloud-enabled, internet-enabled, some of these toys, especially the ones the child can talk to, and then the toy can talk back. So this toy is like a little confidant for the child.
There are toys that kids talk to, and the toy talks back to it?
They can talk back to the kid, kind of like a little Alexa, so to speak, for the kid, but not having to do with Amazon.
So what is happening to all of this information that the kid is talking to the toy?
So the smarts for how that toy can talk back is not built into the toy. There's not nearly enough computing power for that. So everything the kid says gets sent to the cloud in some data center, probably in another country. That data is crunched, a response is generated, it's transmitted back to the toy through the internet and finally your Wi-Fi, and the toy can have a conversation with the child.
So not only is the bear then listening to what the kid is saying, but the bear is also hearing what mom and dad are saying, or any adults in the room.
That's right.
The bear is hearing all of this. And they could be talking about some very private things.
That's right.
And that is being picked up. It is being sent to wherever the information is sent, and it's being stored there.
That's right. But it can also be used for advertising purposes. So not to give ads to the kids, but the electronics in that bear can scan your network. It can see what other devices you have. Maybe it figures out that you've got a smart refrigerator, a smart stove, whatever. That is the kind of data that you've heard the term big data likes to buy and use to market people across the internet.
So what can we do to protect ourselves from this?
Well, probably first and foremost is to only buy internet-enabled devices that really provide a value to you, like the thermostat, and setting your thermostat to a comfortable level before coming home from vacation. Or maybe the smart doorbell that can tell you when a package has been left on the front door so you can go and pick it up. But short of these things, I would probably shy away from internet-enabled gadgets that don't really provide value to you.
Yeah, like a refrigerator or a range or a washer or a coffee maker.
Exactly.
Because they can be gathering your information. Now, let me ask you, I have a smart thermostat, which I really do like, because you can set the temperature remotely when you're coming home.
That's right.
It also has Alexis on there, which I have not enabled. So is Alexis listening to everything that's being said?
Well, the thermostat in this case isn't listening to you per se. What the Alexa capability does is let you control the thermostat through the Alexis app. So if you have an Alexa, you can say, Alexa, set the temperature to 68 degrees, and then that will beam the signal to the thermostat, which will then change your temperature.
So as long as I have not enabled Alexis, the thermostat's not listening to everything that's going on in the house.
Yeah, well, it wasn't doing the listening anyway.
It was Alexa.
That's right. They're handshaking to each other. The thermostat itself isn't listening.
What about the Google app on your phone? Is it listening to you, or do you have to actually click on it and talk to it?
Well, the way these work is they're listening for what's called the hot word. And, of course, if I say all these hot words in everyone's device, the smart speakers are going to start acting up now, so we won't do that. But when you use the hot word, then it gets its attention and it starts interpreting what you say. So even though Alexa or Hey Google or Apple Siri can passively hear everything that's going on, ostensibly they're not recording any of that. But once they hear the hot word, then they start paying attention so they can respond to your request.
Okay, well, on my phone, I have to tap on that little microphone to talk to it.
That's right. And generally that's true on the phone as a kind of an energy saving facet also.
So it's not so just your phone's not, I've got it sitting right here. It's not listening and recording this entire conversation.
No.
The best that we know.
Not typically, no. Now, you can set the phone to automatically listen for the hot word. That's rather inconvenient, though. But at home, they generally are. You don't want to have to go up and touch the smart speaker to have it listen to you.
I do.
Although you can mute them. There is a mute button.
I think I will just touch it to let it listen to me. I don't want to think of it eavesdropping. But these are all things that we really need to think about. And what you're saying is we really don't need all of these internet-enabled appliances in our house because you are setting yourself up for trouble.
That's right. That's right. There's a lot of security issues, and I've got more information on my website that discusses all about Internet of Things.
That's the first time I've ever heard of an internet connected washing machine or dryer. Kurt Graham, who is the director of the Truman Library, is with us. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Now, you recently renovated the library. When was this completed?
Well, this has been done for a little over a year. COVID sort of
right.
Notwithstanding, it was a multi-year project and process to get to this point, but it's a $30 million renovation, and we like to say if you haven't seen us lately, you haven't seen us.
Yeah. What is so special about this library?
Well, it's, there are only 14 communities in America that have a presidential library like this one. So that by itself is significant. Harry Truman is the only Missourian to ever become the president. So that's special for everyone in the state of Missouri, I like to think. And it's such an incredible legacy. It's such an amazing story. Truman was a unique leader. And I think our new exhibits really chronicle the power of his decision-making prowess, the character, the moral core that he brought to those decisions.
He was a decent man.
He was absolutely a decent man.
And everything I've read or heard about him, not only was he a decent man, but he was kind of like the guy next door too.
Well, he literally was. I mean, we'll never have another Harry Truman in the sense that a bootstraps guy who's not college educated, sort of coming up through the ranks on his own in that way. He was unique, and he will be remembered for that.
For people listening on the radio, we've got pictures that I want to show. If you're watching this online or on television, the first one is the outside of the library. Go ahead and describe all of this.
Well, this is the new entrance. What we did with this renovation is we added a new entrance on what used to be the back side of the library, and so this is now the grand entrance, which is by the parking lots, and it makes just so much more sense. You don't have to walk around.
It's beautiful looking.
It's very nice, and the next picture is actually in that seal, a close-up of that presidential seal. So you walk into this nice, we call it Grandview Hall for Grandview, Missouri, where Truman farmed, and it's really incredible to be able to see all that's in there and to walk under that presidential seal and realize that you're in for
kind of gives you the goosebumps.
Yeah, it
just
really
even
does. Thinking
about it. Then the next one is what do we look at here?
Just the entrance of the new exhibit, and a quote from Truman. Our goal is not peace in our time, but peace for all time. Certainly something he was known for, putting the world back together after the war.
Yeah, and then we have the machine, this was the Pendergast.
Yes,
machine.
His start in politics was through the Pendergast machine. People wonder, well, what's a machine? What machine politics are notoriously corrupt. I tell people machines are like parties today, right? They're people who have causes and candidates in common, and they come together to promote that. So
we've got another one. There's Margaret's little cradle.
Yes, the Trumans only had one child, Margaret, and they could only have one child, but they doted on her as if they'd had 10. And she was very much the center of their lives and a big part of everything that goes on there.
Yeah, so that's her little red wagon and her cradle. The next picture that we have This is chilling.
This is probably one of the most important artifacts that we have on display in the museum. It is the safety plug that was in the bomb that went off over Nagasaki.
This is the original safety plug?
Well, it's obviously the only part of the bomb that survived. So.
Yeah. So that is the safety plug from the bomb.
Yes.
That went off over Nagasaki.
Exactly. So it was in the plane. The U.S. airman pulled the safety plug out, probably stuck in his pocket, put the activation plug and the other protocols that he went through, dropped the bombs, and years later called the library and said, I have this thing. Would you be interested in this? And it's literally the trigger of the atomic age. You can't get closer to the birth of nuclear warfare than that plug.
It changed the world.
Absolutely.
Then we have a globe. What does this globe signify?
Well, this is the fractured globe, and it represents the world that Truman had to put back together. And the room that globe is in chronicles all of Truman's effort to put the world back together. The Marshall Plan, the Truman Doctrine, the Berlin Airlift, the founding of NATO, all of those things that he did that gave us the infrastructure for the world that we have today.
Another picture that I have seen so many times. Dewey defeats Truman, the headlines, and there is Harry Truman holding the headlines when he had won the presidency.
One of the great electoral moments in our history, 1948, one of the most amazing campaigns, and Truman crisscrossed the country twice in 2 months to take his case directly to the people and pulled a rabbit out of a hat. Nobody thought he could do it, and he won the election.
In fact, the headline said that he had lost, but he won.
He won actually quite handily.
And then the buck stops here. That's his famous saying, and the original sign that was on his desk is on display there.
Yes, that is the one. And what's interesting about it, that sign faces out and the person sitting across the desk sees the buck stops here. But if you walk to the back side of the case and you see what Truman saw, the back side of that sign says, "I'm from Missouri."
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. But the fact the buck stops here, he took responsibility for it all.
Absolutely. And that's what leaders have to do.
Exactly. And a lot of times we don't see that. That shows character. Then you have a replica of the Oval Office in President Truman's day.
This is as the Oval Office was in 1950, based on photographs of his time there, and everything is true to form, exactly as he had it.
The presidential limousine is on display. His presidential limousine looks a little bit different than the Beast that they call today.
Yeah.
And then you have a picture, and then you have his personal car.
He was definitely a car guy, but if you look behind that car, you see a buggy, and what that represents is Truman, born in 1884, went from horse and buggy days to jet travel.
Yeah.
I mean, forms of transportation, and he loved it. I mean, he loved the open road, he loved to drive, but he understood, or lived through, I should say, that incredible transformation in transportation.
Yes. People can come in and spend probably hours and hours and hours and not see everything that's there.
And we have rotating exhibits as well. In fact, right now, between now and the end of the year, we have the paintings from George W. Bush, Portraits of Courage. That is on display in our lower level gallery, which is a rotating gallery. Quite an amazing tribute to our wounded veterans that President Bush painted. And it's just included with the price of admission, nothing extra, but definitely worth seeing. So if you're going to come see us, come before the end of the year. Okay.
All right. So for more information, you can go to www.newtruman.org. Is that the website for the museum?
Yeah, we have the Truman Library Institute, and we also have the museum, trumanlibrary.gov.
Okay, all right, got it. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Sounds very nice and interesting.
Hope you can come see us.
I'd love to. We're out of time for today. Something you'd like to hear or see, drop me an email. That's pepperp@missouri.edu, and have yourself a nice rest of the day. Bye-bye.